Well, in 2024, very similar to 2023, we see two main categories of risk. One is the geopolitical risk. We have a number of conflicts now impacting the world and making the life of many people miserable, but also they have the potential to impact supply chains either in a direct way or an indirect way. On top of that, next year, there are going to be more than 40 elections for parliaments or president, and that can generate shifts on specific countries that could eventually have also an impact on global supply chains. So we expect that the whole category of geopolitical risk will remain there. The second one, but not necessarily the second one in terms of impact, relates to climate, right? We see especially with the El Niño phenomenon, next year is going to continue to have an impact in the Americas, where we expect to have droughts, and then you have situations like the Panama Channel, where the water levels are a little bit lower, while in Asia it generates hurricanes, and that of course also disrupt the communication between and the transport between the different countries. We see that continuing. Again, the challenge is to know which ones are going to be those specific risks, at what level and what dimension, and when will they actually happen.
If companies are aware of their behavioral patterns, and also their embedded, very much embedded behavioral patterns, they may also hedge for those risks, but also see the risk that they actually are creating themselves in their mere behavior. For example, if your immediate response to certain events is to take everything back to your own continent and start building all kind of production sites there, that creates by itself already a risk becoming too dependent on one particular source. And also in inventories, where you might say, okay, let's build up a lot of inventory because I see a lot of things happening. Well, you're contributing to this aforementioned bullwhip effect. So the behavioral responses of managers to events by itself also poses a risk. So that conscious, that awareness that, hey, what I'm doing might also create new risks instead of actually mitigating them is I think very important.
So when looking into 2024, what we have found is that at a macro level, the expectation is that the demand will continue the current path, which is a slightly growth, and that the inventory levels are going back to the pre-pandemics. That put us in a situation on which global supply chains look a little bit leaner compared to what we have been using the past couple of years. From our perspective, we believe that it will help supply chain leaders if they define upfront which are their key business priorities and how is the supply chain enabling those key business priorities. That could be in terms of category of products, new geographies, new product launches, and then jump into making sure that they have clarity on which are the elements of the supply chain that could be more exposed to risk. Mm-hmm. And the whole logic here is to make sure that they can engage early their employees and the partners that work around those areas, so that they can create mitigations plan in case of disruptions in their supply chains.
Yes, indeed. I think indeed that the last, what you just said, is very important, that we realize that global supply chains are not so much moving again into a new equilibrium, but are actually faced with a new normal, namely that of constant change and possibly disruption. So in making decisions with regard to inventory positions and so on, we should realize that it's not just about responding to the latest development, but also taking into account the more longer term dynamics of that supply chain. So, for example, what we've seen as well is that companies, because of these global events, at least these events that had a global impact, were taking decisions almost like simultaneously, creating massive global bullwhip effects. So we should take into account that it's not just about the immediate response to new developments, moving towards new equilibrium, but much more see it as a dynamics that we also need to manage as a risk by itself.